I am Morgan, 28 years old, and 3 weeks ago my father threw my mother's wedding gift to me onto the cold marble floor in front of 150 guests. The sound it made, that small dull thud of worn leather against stone, lodged itself in my bones. I felt it in my teeth, in the thin skin at my wrists where my pulse jumped. People say a moment can split your life into before and after. I did not believe that until I watched my father lift his arm, fling that little book, and turn my wedding into a public execution. He shouted, "Garbage belongs with garbage." He was talking about my mother, about her gift, about me. I saw his mouth shape the words like he was savouring them. I saw the satisfied flare of his nostrils, the way his shoulders squared as if the room owed him applause. The string quartet stopped mid-note. Forks froze above plates. A champagne glass clicked against a saucer. My mother's face went slack, like she had stepped outside her own body. And still she stood there, hands folded, tears sliding down, apologising with her silence the way she had done for my whole life. I did not know then what the passbook was. I only knew it looked old and small in my mother's hands, faded blue leather softened at the corners, gold letters almost gone. It looked like something you would find in a drawer and toss without thinking. That was exactly why my father hated it. In his world, value had to be loud. It had to sparkle. It had to make other people lean in. My mother offered something quiet, and my father could not stand the idea that quiet might be worth more than him. A week later, I carried that battered passbook into First National Bank in Greenwich. I expected the teller to glance at the balance, smile politely, and hand it back with a mild apology for wasting her time. Instead, her fingers stopped over the keyboard. Her eyes widened. Colour drained from her face as if someone pulled a plug. She looked from the screen to me and back again, swallowing hard. Then she stood up too fast, chair scraping, and whispered, "Ma'am, please do not leave." She disappeared through a door marked employees only. My stomach dropped into my shoes. That is where I will pause for one breath, because I need you to understand what this story is really about. It is not about money, even though money is what everyone asks about. It is about what happens when someone spends decades trying to make you small, and you finally realise you never had to fit in their hands at all. Let me take you back 2 months before my wedding, when everything started to unravel, and I still thought my mother was weak. My family was not poor. That is the first thing you need to know, because people hear library job and assume struggle. My father, Richard Donovan, owned a mid-sized real estate company in Connecticut. Not a national giant, not a Fortune 500 name, but comfortable. He drove a Mercedes E-Class like it was proof of moral superiority. He collected Rolex watches and kept them in a glass case in his office so visitors would notice. He joined every club that would take him and complained about every club that would not. At the country club, he spoke loudly about being self-made, as if volume could replace truth. I grew up in a 5-bedroom colonial in Greenwich where everything looked polished from the curb. White shutters, perfect lawn lines, hydrangeas arranged like a magazine cover. Inside, success had a specific shape in my father's eyes. It had a male voice. It wore a suit. It carried a briefcase. When I was 12, he told me, if you had been born a boy, I would have someone to pass the business to. I remember standing there in my socks on the hardwood floor, my only child status apparently invisible. I had gotten straight as that semester. I had made a poster about women inventors. None of it mattered. In his mind, I was a placeholder, not a legacy. My mother Helen lived in the margins of our house. She cooked and cleaned. She smiled at dinner parties and laughed at my father's jokes at the right moments. Every morning she went to a part-time job at the local library. My father never missed a chance to mock it. "What do you even do there?" he would sneer. "Organise books nobody reads. Count dust." He said it like she was a child playing pretend while he carried the real world. My mother never defended herself. Not once. She would just nod, clear the dishes, and disappear into the kitchen as if her body knew where to hide. For years I thought she was weak. I am ashamed to write that, but it is true. I looked at her silence and saw surrender. I saw a woman who let a man define her. I did not understand what she was actually doing. I did not understand anything. My father had a favourite phrase, delivered like scripture. In this house, men decide, women execute. He said it like wisdom, like he was teaching me some ancient truth instead of cruelty wrapped in tradition. And for most of my life, I believed him. Because believing him was easier than facing the emptiness that came from knowing your own father did not see you. I met Daniel Mercer on a Tuesday in October during a field trip. I teach 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary, which in my father's view is a waste of potential. He called it babysitting with a salary. That day I was chaperoning 23 8-year-olds through a construction site tour when I literally bumped into the architect, explaining load-bearing walls. Daniel caught my elbow before I fell into a pile of lumber. His hands were warm. His smile was warmer. "Careful," he said. "This is a hard hat zone." I was not wearing a hard hat. Neither was my heart. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. 2 years of dinners where he asked about my day and listened like my answers mattered. 2 years of someone looking at me for who I was, not what connections I could provide. Daniel was steady in a way my home never was. Even when he disagreed, he did not need to win. He did not need to shrink me to feel tall. Being loved by him felt like breathing air after living underwater. Daniel's family was different from mine in every way that counted. His father, Harold, ran Mercer Development, a commercial real estate firm that made my father's company look like a lemonade stand. But you would never know it by how they treated people. The first time I met Harold and Catherine Mercer, they asked about my students, not my family's net worth. Catherine poured tea in their Manhattan penthouse and said, "Third grade is such a pivotal year. That is when children really start to discover who they are." My throat tightened. Nobody had ever talked about my work like it mattered before. When my father found out who Daniel was, something shifted. Suddenly, he was interested in my relationship. Suddenly, he wanted to meet my boyfriend. Suddenly, his daughter, the teacher, was making connections. He called me for the first time in 6 months, the day after I announced my engagement. Not to congratulate me, to ask about Harold Mercer portfolio. He asked about projects, about investment angles, about who Harold partnered with. I held the phone away from my ear and stared at the wall, feeling that old, familiar hollowness return. The moment I became useful, I became visible. 3 days after meeting Daniel's parents, my father announced he would pay for everything. The whole wedding, venue, catering, flowers, everything. "Consider it my gift," he said, leaning forward in his home office with eyes bright in a way I had never seen directed at me. Interest. I should have been suspicious. My father had never spent more than $50 on my birthday presents. Suddenly he wanted to drop $80,000 on a wedding. But Daniel squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "Maybe he is trying to change." I wanted to believe that. I wanted it so badly that I nodded and said yes, even though a quiet part of me already knew my father did nothing without a return. Within a week, my father had booked Westbrook Country Club, a venue he was not even a member of but desperately wanted to be. He selected the caterer, the florist, the band. He designed invitations with gold foil lettering that cost more than my monthly salary. The guest list had 150 names. I recognized maybe 30. Business associates, my father explained when I asked. Important people. Important to whom, I wanted to say, but I swallowed it the way I always did around him. Swallowing kept the peace. Swallowing kept my mother from flinching. Swallowing was a habit I did not realize I had trained into my body. The night before the invitations went out, my mother found me in the garden. She moved quietly like she always did, appearing beside me like a ghost. "Morgan," she said softly, pressing something into my hand. "I have a gift for you too, but I will give it to you on your wedding day." Her fingers were warm and trembling around mine. "It is the most important thing I have," she whispered. "Remember that no matter what anyone says." I looked at her face, at the faint lines around her mouth that had deepened over years of holding back words. I did not understand then, but I would. The morning of the wedding, I sat in my childhood bedroom and thought about my mother. A memory surfaced, one I had almost forgotten. I was 15, homesick from school, wandering the house in pyjamas. I went looking for crackers and heard something from my parents' bedroom, counting. My mother's voice was soft and rhythmic, like a lullaby made of numbers. I crept to the doorway and peeked inside. She sat on the edge of the bed, a small notebook in her hands, a stack of bills on the comforter beside her. Not a lot of money, maybe a few hundred, but she counted it like it was gold. When she saw me, her face changed. Not guilty. Something else. She tucked the notebook into the old oak jewellery box that had belonged to her mother and said, "Just grown-up things. Nothing to worry about." I never asked again. Kids do not. We assume our parents' secrets do not concern us. Now, 15 years later, I watched the morning light stream through the curtains and wondered what she had been saving for, and why she had to hide it. My mother knocked at 9 o'clock holding a garment bag with my borrowed Vera Wang inside, because my father insisted. I was not ready, not for any of it, but I smiled and let her help me into the dress. White silk and imported lace, elegant and expensive, and nothing like what I would have chosen. "You look beautiful," my mother said, eyes wet. I did not know then she was saying goodbye to the life she had endured for me. Westbrook Country Club looked like something from a magazine. White roses cascaded from crystal vases. A string quartet played Vivaldi near the fountain. 300 chairs were arranged in perfect rows on the manicured lawn, each draped with silk ribbons that matched my bouquet. At the centre of it all stood my father, directing vendors like a general. Move that table. Adjust those flowers. No, the champagne tower goes there. He wore a Tom Ford suit I had never seen before. Charcoal grey and perfectly tailored, cufflinks glinting. He looked expensive. He looked important. He looked like someone playing a role. When the Mercer car pulled up, an understated black sedan, my father transformed. His posture straightened. His smile widened. He crossed the lawn with his hand extended before Harold had even closed the car door. Harold, Catherine, welcome, welcome. He used a voice I did not recognise, warm and soft, the voice of a man who wanted something. From the corner of my eye, I saw my mother standing alone near the rose garden in a champagne-coloured dress my father selected, not the deep blue she wanted. Her smile looked painted on. She caught my eye through the window, something sad and knowing passing between us. Then my father's voice boomed, "Let me give you the grand tour," and my mother's face went blank again. The ceremony was beautiful. That sounds strange given everything that followed, but standing at the altar with Daniel's hands in mine, watching his eyes fill with tears as I said I do, that part was real. He slid a platinum band onto my finger and whispered, "I love you. No matter what happens, remember that." He said it like a promise against something coming. The minister pronounced us married. Daniel kissed me softly. 150 people applauded, most of them strangers my father invited. During that kiss, I looked out at the crowd and saw my father beaming at Harold Mercer, not at me. In the front row, my mother sat alone, eyes red, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. She was not smiling. At cocktail hour, she hovered at the edges of conversations. Always alone, always watching my father work the room. Once she reached out to touch his arm and he shook her off without looking. "Not now, Helen." 3 words spoken like she was a fly near his champagne. I should have gone to her then. I did not. That is something I will regret forever. By 8, my father was drunk in the controlled way he allowed himself. Voice louder, stories bigger, truth flexible. I watched him corner Harold near the champagne tower and boast about 15 million in revenue, about expanding into commercial, about big things coming. I knew for a fact his company had done maybe 3 million. Harold stayed polite, but I saw him exchange a glance with Catherine, that married look that said, "We both see this." "Ladies and gentlemen," the master of ceremonies announced, "it is time for the family gifts." My father took the stage first, naturally. "Daniel, Morgan, from the Donovan family to yours, a check for $50,000 for your future." He held up an Italian leather envelope embossed with gold. Applause. I smiled the pleasant empty smile I learned from my mother. We both knew he borrowed against his credit line. That check was an investment in Harold Mercer good opinion. Harold went next with no performance. He handed Daniel a small Tiffany blue box. "A key," he said, "to a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights. It was Catherine's grandmother's place. We thought you two might like to start your life there." The room went quiet. I watched my father's face. For a split second his mask slipped. I saw comparison register. I saw him understand his $50,000 had been eclipsed by generational wealth given with ease. His jaw tightened. His smile sharpened. Then the master of ceremonies called. And now, from the mother of the bride, Helen Donovan. My mother rose, holding something small and worn. My stomach dropped for reasons I could not yet name. She did not use the microphone. She walked to our head table with careful, measured steps. In her hands was a small book, about 5 inches by 3, bound in faded blue leather. "Morgan," she said, voice barely above a whisper, "this is my gift to you." She pressed it into my hands. It was a bank passbook, the kind they stopped issuing decades ago. First National Bank stamped in worn gold. I started to say I did not understand, but my mother looked at me with a fierceness I had never seen. "This is everything I have," she said. "Everything I have saved. I want you to have the freedom I never had." The passbook weighed almost nothing, yet my hands shook as if it was heavy. I hugged her. "Thank you, Mum," I whispered. "Do not let anyone tell you it is worthless," she whispered back. "Promise me." I nodded. "I promise." Then my father's voice shattered everything. "What is that supposed to be?" He stood so fast his chair nearly toppled. His face was flushed from alcohol and embarrassment and something darker. "Helen," he said like poison. "What the hell is that?" My mother did not answer. He crossed the room in 4 strides and snatched the passbook from my hands. "A savings book," he laughed, but it was cruelty wearing laughter. "You gave our daughter a savings book in front of the Mercers." "Richard, please," my mother began. 30 years, he roared. 30 years of marriage and this is what you contribute. Worthless. He threw it. The passbook hit the marble floor with a sound like a slap and skidded near a rose arrangement. "Garbage belongs with garbage," my father shouted. Silence slammed down. 150 people sat frozen. My mother stood motionless, tears streaming, accepting, trained. Then, so soft only I heard, she whispered, "I am sorry, Morgan." After everything he had done, she apologized. Something inside me snapped, but it did not explode. It went cold and clear. Daniel's hand found mine under the table, fingers trembling with rage. He wanted to stand, to defend us, to put my father through the ice sculpture. I knew it. I felt it in the heat radiating off him. I leaned close and said, Do not give him what he wants." I had grown up with Richard Donovan. If Daniel hit him, my father would become the victim. If Daniel yelled, my father would call it disrespect. Violence would be the distraction my father needed, a way to reframe the narrative. I would not hand him that. Across the room, Harold Mercer stood up, face gone cold. Catherine rose with him, already gathering her purse like she had practiced leaving rooms that did not deserve her. "Catherine," Harold said quietly, "I think we should leave." My father's smile faltered. "Harold, please, this is just a family matter." "Mr. Donovan," Harold replied, voice like ice, "I have seen enough to understand exactly what kind of man you are." They turned toward the exit. My father stammered, trying to chase them with words, but he had no currency in that moment. I released Daniel's hand and stood up slowly. Every eye tracked me. The silk of my wedding dress whispered against my legs as I stepped down from the head table. My father pivoted toward me, face shifting through confusion and irritation and the beginning of another tirade. I walked past him without looking at him. My heels clicked against the marble, 1 step, 2, 3. The passbook lay where it fell, faded blue against white stone. One corner bent from impact. I bent down, picked it up, and brushed it off carefully, gently, like it was made of glass. When I straightened, I walked to my mother. She stood near the wall, tears wet on her cheeks, shoulders hunched as if expecting another blow. I lifted her chin with my fingers. "Thank you, Mom," I said loud enough for the room to hear. "This is the most meaningful gift I have ever received. I will treasure it forever." I kissed her cheek and felt her trembling. Then I turned to Daniel. "We are leaving," I said. Daniel was already on his feet, eyes locked on mine, ready to follow. "Where do you think you are going?" my father shouted. "The reception is not over. You are embarrassing me." I stopped and turned just enough to see him from the corner of my eye. "I do not need your permission, Dad, and I do not need your approval." My voice surprised even me, calm and steady. "What I need is to leave. So that is what I am doing." Daniel took my hand. Together we walked out while my father kept shouting behind us, words about disrespect and everything he had done. I did not hear any of it. I kept walking. The brownstone in Brooklyn Heights was quiet in a way my childhood home never was. Harold and Catherine gave us the key months ago, but we planned to save it for after the honeymoon. Instead, it became our refuge on our wedding night. Daniel ordered Thai food. Neither of us ate much. I sat on the window seat, still in my wedding dress, too drained to change, watching city lights blur through glass. The passbook sat beside me, warm from my hand. "You do not have to look at it tonight," Daniel said softly. "Whatever is in there can wait." I nodded, but I could not stop touching it. "My mother stayed for me," I said suddenly. Daniel sat close. "You do not know that for sure." I did. The way she looked at me, the way she said freedom, the way she warned me not to throw it away. It was not just money. It was choices. It was an escape hatch she had been building in silence. My phone buzzed at 6 in the morning. 17 missed calls from my father. Voicemails swung from fury to desperation like a broken record. "You humiliated me. I am cutting you out of the will. Morgan, sweetie, your dad had too much champagne." I stopped listening. I blocked the number. My hands shook, but my mind felt steady. Daniel watched without trying to talk me out of it. My mother texted, "My dearest Morgan, I am so sorry for what happened. Your father does not know what he threw away. Go to First National Bank, Greenwich branch. Ask for Mr. Thomas Patterson. Show him the passbook. He will explain everything. I love you more than you will ever know." "Mom," I read it 3 times. Daniel's voice was careful. "The passbook says $847. That is not nothing, but it is not freedom." I looked at the worn leather and felt the hum of mystery. "My mom said it is the most important thing she has." So we went. First National Bank in Greenwich looked older than the town itself. Stone columns, brass fixtures, old money elegance that made my father's ambitions look desperate. Inside it smelled like leather and old paper. Tellers in crisp uniforms worked behind mahogany counters. A young teller with a nameplate that read, "Emily smiled." "Can I help you?" I slid the passbook across. "I would like to check the balance." Emily scanned the account number into her computer. Her expression shifted, eyes wide, fingers stopped. She looked at the screen, then at me, then back again. "I am sorry. Could you excuse me for one moment?" She did not wait for an answer. She pressed a button under the counter and disappeared through an employee's only door. My heart pounded loud enough to drown the lobby sounds. Daniel squeezed my hand. "Something is happening," he murmured. Footsteps. Muffled voices. Then the door opened and a silver-haired man in a three-piece suit emerged. He looked at me with an expression I could not read. "Mrs. Mercer," he said, "I am Thomas Patterson, branch manager. Would you please come with me? And please," he added quietly, "do not leave." He led us past a door marked private banking. Inside, everything changed. Persian rugs, oil paintings, leather chairs that probably cost more than my salary. Mr. Patterson sat behind a mahogany desk and held out his hand. "May I?" I gave him the passbook. He opened it carefully, almost reverently, and typed the account number into his computer. For a long moment, he stared at the screen like he was choosing words that would not break me. "Mrs. Mercer," he said finally, "do you know what this is?" "A savings account," I whispered. "My mother gave it to me." "It is more than that." He turned the monitor toward me. "This passbook is the key to a trust account established 25 years ago. Your mother is the settlor. You have been the designated beneficiary since birth." My vision blurred. "The current balance," Mr. Patterson continued gently, "is $2,147,893. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the chair as if gravity might forget me. Mr. Patterson explained in a calm, even voice. "An initial contribution of $200,000 came from an inheritance your mother received in 1999 from Margaret Wilson. It was separate property under Connecticut law, held under the trust name Helen Wilson. Your mother never commingled it with marital assets. She made consistent deposits from her work, small but steady, and the account was invested conservatively. Compound growth over decades added considerably." He showed a graph, a line rising year after year like a heartbeat refusing to stop. I started crying without noticing. Daniel wrapped an arm around me, but I could barely feel it. My mother, my quiet, overlooked mother, had been building my freedom for 25 years, while my father mocked her for counting dust. "How did she hide this?" I choked out. "My father controlled everything." Mr. Patterson chose his words carefully. "I can only tell you what I know." She was methodical. He pulled an envelope from a drawer, cream-coloured, sealed with wax. "She left this in the file to be opened only when you came to claim the account." My hands shook as I broke the seal. Inside was one page of my mother's elegant script. "My dearest Morgan, if you are reading this, you found your freedom. This money is yours, not your father, not any man. It is yours to do with as you please. I stayed because I wanted you to have a stable home, but I was never truly trapped. I was preparing. All my love, Mum." I read it 3 times, and each time it cut a new opening in my chest. Not pain, but air. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat softly. "There is something else. Your parents have had a legal separation agreement in place for approximately 20 years. I stared at him. A separation agreement. They remained in the same residence, but your mother's legal and financial interests were protected. It was unconventional." He hesitated. "I believe she stayed for you until you were grown. Until you were safe." I called my mother with shaking hands. She answered on the first ring. "Morgan, did you go to the bank?" "Mum," I whispered, "why did you not tell me?" Her breath hitched. "Because you were a child and children should not carry their parents' secrets. You needed stability. You needed to believe in family even when family was broken. You sacrificed everything," I said. "No, sweetheart," she replied, voice thick with tears. "I sacrificed nothing. I invested. I invested in you. And now it is time for us both to be free. What do you want to do now, Mum?" "I want to leave," she said, like an exhale she had held for decades. "I already spoke to my lawyer. The divorce papers are ready. They have been ready for years. I have an apartment near the library in New Haven. I have been paying rent for 2 years. Just waiting." My father never looked at the household accounts closely. He thought money was beneath him. He threw me cash like I was staff. So I saved. I planned. I prepared. "What about you?" she asked. "What do you want to do with the money?" I looked at Daniel. "I do not want revenge," I said slowly. "I do not want to humiliate him. I just want to live without his voice in my head telling me I am not enough." My mother was quiet. Then she said, "That is exactly what I hoped you would say." 1 week after the wedding, my mother started packing. I was not there when my father found out, but she told me later in the same factual voice she used for weather. He came home early and found her in the bedroom with a Samsonite suitcase open on the bed. What the hell do you think you are doing? He demanded. She did not stop folding. I am leaving, Richard. I filed for divorce. You will be served by the end of the week. He laughed that dismissive laugh I grew up with. With what? You do not have anything. You never had anything. We have been legally separated for 20 years, she said calmly. I have my own assets, my own lawyer, my own future. His face went purple. That is impossible. I would have known. You did not ask, she replied. You never asked about anything that did not directly benefit you. She closed the suitcase with a click and lifted it like it weighed nothing. Goodbye, Richard. I hope you find whatever you are looking for in other people's admiration, because you will not find it in your family anymore. Then she walked out, and for the first time in 30 years, she said she was not afraid. My father called me that night, voice ragged, demanding answers. What did you do? What did you tell her? Nothing, Dad. Mum made her own choice. He insisted it had to be the Mercer family. It had to be me. Anything but the truth that he never saw her. I told him, you had 30 years to change. You chose not to. He threatened to cut me out of the will. I surprised myself by almost laughing. Dad, I do not need anything from you. Not anymore. Then I ended the call and blocked him again. 2 weeks later, Harold and Catherine came for dinner. Daniel made lasagna. I set the table, and for the first time my life felt like it belonged to me. Then the doorbell rang and instinct tightened my gut. My father stood on the stoop, holding flowers and a bottle of wine, smile pasted on. Morgan. I was in the neighbourhood. You are not invited, Dad, I said. Just 5 minutes, he pleaded. I need to talk to Harold. There it was, the real reason. Even in an apology, he was still chasing advantage. Harold stepped behind me, voice cold as January. Mr. Donovan, I do not believe we have anything to discuss. My father tried to blame alcohol. Harold did not blink. I watched you throw your wife gift on the floor and call it garbage. That was not alcohol. That was character. My father erupted into the old speech about building everything, about important people, about spending $80,000 on the wedding. He stopped mid-sentence when he realised what he admitted. Harold finished it for him, calm and lethal. You spent borrowed money to put on a show for me, not for your daughter. And when your wife gave the most meaningful gift of the night, you threw it away because it did not fit your performance. Mr. Donovan, I do not do business with men who treat their families as props. Please do not contact me again. Then Harold closed the door, and my father had nowhere left to perform. The fallout was quiet but devastating. Deals did not explode. They simply vanished. Meetings were politely declined. Calls were not returned. In small Connecticut circles, reputation travels like smoke. My father did not collapse, but the doors he spent decades trying to open stayed shut. I did not take joy in it. Mostly I felt tired, as if I finally set down a weight I did not know I carried. My mother bloomed. She cut her hair short, the way my father forbade. She painted her living room yellow, her favourite colour. She volunteered at the library for joy instead of survival. She began writing. First a journal, then a structured memoir. She published it later and received letters from women who recognised their own lives in her words. Worth it, she told me, holding one letter like it was sacred. People asked what I did with the money. I kept teaching. I did not become a teacher because I could not do anything else. I became one because I love watching 8-year-olds discover they are capable of more than they thought. I worked with an advisor and established the Margaret Wilson Education Fund, named for my grandmother. Every year it helped 5 low-income students attend college. I also started teaching my 3rd graders financial literacy, small actions repeated over time, patience that becomes power. My father and I have not spoken in 18 months. He calls sometimes birthdays, holidays, random Tuesdays. I do not answer. I do not block him either. Loving someone you cannot be around is a strange grief. Forgiveness is a process, not a moment. And forgiveness does not mean letting someone back into your life to hurt you again. 3 years later, I sit in my kitchen watching my daughter eat scrambled eggs. Her name is Margaret, Maggie for short. She has Daniel's eyes and my mother's stubborn chin and a laugh that fills every room. My mother sits at the table, silver-haired and serene, guiding Maggie fork like it is a tiny engineering problem. Through the window, the Connecticut afternoon is gold with leaves. Perfect weather used to mean performing. Now it just means the day is beautiful. I keep the Passbook in a frame near the living room window where the light catches the faded blue leather. Visitors ask what it is. I tell them it was my mother's gift, the most valuable thing she ever gave me. They ask how much was in it, and I tell them that is not the point. What matters is what it represented. 25 years of patience. 25 years of small, invisible actions building towards something enormous. Love expressed through preparation, not noise. My father called it garbage. He threw it on the floor in front of everyone who mattered to him. He was wrong. The garbage was never the passbook. The garbage was the idea that love could be measured by performance, impressions, admiration. Real love looked like my mother's savings book, worn, easy to overlook, and worth more than everything my father ever tried to buy.